What's the decision to come back? You know, I don't even know how this happened. Somebody asked this. I heard that somebody else had played here, and it gave us the thought, well, you know, this is where we started, you know? And we had done the Hollywood Bowl last time we were in Los Angeles playing, which is pretty much the top of the game, you know? So we figured, okay, let's do a full circle thing and go back to literally the first gig we ever played in Los Angeles was here. Just starting out, we had an album called Whole Oats, which was our first album, and just a little folky singer-songwriter album, and we wanted to play in Los Angeles, obviously, you know, and we hadn't really gone that far outside of the Philadelphia, New York area, and so here we were in LA, and we were opening for Harry Chapin, which was an interesting bill. Harry was really big at the time. He had that song Taxi, you know, Harry Keep the Change and all. So he was definitely happening, and it was a great show. I truly remember this show. You know, after all these years, I still really, it felt like we were here a long time. We couldn't have been here more than a couple days, but it felt like we played a lot of shows. I don't know. It's weird. Well, some things have changed really radically. Some things haven't changed at all. You know, I think that our emotions and our emotional approach to music is exactly the same as it was when we were kids. I think the execution of it is very different. We've lived all these years. We've grown up. We've matured as people. We've lived amazing lives. I think that's all reflected in the music. But at the same time, there's a certain desire to have a purity and a simplicity, which I think we've gone full circle with that too. You know, we've been very full blown in our music over the years, and I think at this point in our lives, it's really closer to the way it was in the very beginning than it ever has been. I'm a little too inside it to know objectively why we have sustained, other than the fact that we're really hard workers. We're very unique people, unique songwriters. We have a very sort of timeless approach to music. And I think that if you have that, that's obviously, if it works that way, it is going to transcend time. It's brotherly. You know, you know your brother. You don't hang out with your brother so much necessarily. We don't spend a lot of time together, other than when we work. And even that, we're not really working together that much. But it's one of those things that we have a certain intimacy that it started when we were kids, and we've never really lost it. We're still basically 17 years old that way. Well, it wasn't that I was listening to soul. I was immersed in an environment that soul music came out of. I grew up on the streets of the Philadelphia area and in Philadelphia, and that's the music of my childhood. You know, it wasn't come from the outside; it's coming from the inside. That's all I heard. You know, I had to leave that area to hear other kinds of music. And sort of when we got in, one of the things that happened when John and I got together is in college you start, you know, it's all about expanding yourself, and I started listening to bluegrass music and things like that because John was into that. And I had never heard that kind of music. You know, I only heard you know, doo-wop music and R&B and soul and all that. That's the only music I was exposed to, and some classical music, of course. But so I think that was one of the main things that started us, was this sort of searching, trying to search outside of the neighborhood for some other kind of some musical influence. We both separately, even before we got together as kids in Philly, started out in the studio. I mean, I was very involved in Sigma Sound in Philly and was a studio rat, basically. So, you know, to me, all the things that have happened, and it all happened in the course of our career, was all these technological changes I just looked at as tools. They were just, if somebody made a new something, I would say, okay, let's try using that and see what happens. You know, we were the first people to use, in America, the first people to use Mellotrons. We were the first American band. We went to New Jersey and bought the first one right off the boat. And I was the first, I had #2 Moog polyphonic synthesizer, which was the first multi-sound synthesizer. We were early on with drum machines. It was all part of the songwriting process, but you know, to me it's just tools. I think the whole history of our lives is trying to remove the gatekeepers and trying to pull off the veils and the filters and try and be pure. at least pure to the particular vision we're having at the time. And that's hard to do, especially if you have an unusual outlook. You always have to sort of, whether it's record people or radio people or even producers, it's really hard to get through all that and do what you want to do. And we've always been very strong about it. It's all seamless to me. Production, songwriting, arranging, it's all part of the process, the same process. You know, I can't really differentiate one thing from the other. I don't really separate. It's really interesting to see, and I'm very involved in new music right now because of my internet show, and I've been interacting a lot with new musicians, and it's going in a lot of different directions, as music should, really. It's more scattered than it's been in a long time. I think there's more room for innovative personalities and creativity. There's not as much room for making a lot of money and appealing to masses of people. I think if you do that, you have to give up a lot. The people that I'm sort of interested in right now are doing that, but they're doing it really their own way. And I think there's a lot of really good music out there and a lot of good musicians that are going to be around. Paul Williams, one of the late Paul Williams of the Temptations, very simply one time said to me, no matter what you do, don't lose your soul. And then that's a simple statement. And he looked at me in my eyes and he said that. He says, you got something and don't ever lose your soul. Don't let anybody take it away from you. That's good advice.